Hi, welcome. This video will help you learn how to write an inequality if you're given the graph on a number line. That's a pretty common thing in algebra. They'll give you a number line where there's a graph on it and you need to write the inequality. So when I say write the inequality, it means like you might have x is greater than 3 or y is less than or equal to -2, that sort of thing. If you haven't practiced it or had an explanation, it might feel a little bit confusing. So let's just go with it and see how it happens. First, we need to learn some notation. So we're going to talk about the different symbols that we use as inequalities. This one here, the first one, is a less than symbol. And the way that, actually, let me just say that your best bet is to actually write these down, kind of have like a cheat sheet. Write down the 4 symbols, and then we're going to have a little cheat sheet on what an open circle means on a number line or a closed circle. The other symbol that is sitting over there is the greater than symbol, and that is, both of these are, if you're reading from left to right. I feel like that's how we're taught. And then sometimes when the variable ends up on the opposite side, we can get all confuzzled. So if you are struggling with inequalities, and especially in algebra, you can watch some of my videos. I really try to stress that most of what we learn is when the variable is on the left-hand side of the inequality. But there are plenty of problems out there where the variable ends up on the right-hand side, and so I do talk. I won't in this one, but when I solve inequalities, on a video, I always try to show you how to switch that around legally, in math anyways. All right, there are 2 other symbols that we have. If we have the less than with the little line under it, it means less than or equal to. And that means that the number that it's sitting on is included as part of the solution, and we'll talk about that as we go through it. And then the other one that we have is the greater than with the little line under it, and this means greater than, greater than or equal to. All right, so those are the basics. You've probably been exposed to those probably since 3rd or 4th grade. I'm not quite sure when that gets taught, but if you haven't been in math for a while, it's good to write down. The other thing I'd like you to have a cheat sheet for is you'll see on some of the graphs that we're dealing with, you're going to have either an open circle or a closed circle. What am I talking about? Well, if you look at the graph below, this is what I'm calling an open circle. It's not filled in. All right, so here's the cheat sheet. If we have a non-filled in circle or an open circle, that is going to be the way that we can tell it's either going to be less than or greater than. Okay, if we have a circle and it's all filled in like that, it means that the inequalities we're talking about are either going to be less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. And when we have one of these come up in a problem, I'll explain that a little bit more. All right, so that's the basic notation. Let's jump in. What I have written down here is to start with a variable, and then think of the variable in your mind as saying all numbers. So I feel like most of the time people struggle with these because they just don't know where to start. It's not that they can't figure out what part is shaded, because it's really clear that the numbers bigger than 0 are shaded. That's easy to see, but how do we translate that into an inequality? All right, so it says start with a variable. I'm going to pick x just because it's the most common. So that's what it means. Put your x down, write it down. Now we need to choose either less than, greater than, less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. We have to choose one of these 4, and this little cheat sheet here is going to help us do that. We have an open circle, so I'm narrowing it down to these 2. All right, so instead of having to choose from 4, now I only have to choose from 2. All right, in this part here, variable meaning all numbers. So when we're reading it, we're not going to say x is less than or x is greater than. We're going to think of it, what is shaded here? Is it all numbers less than 0 or all numbers greater than 0? Well, we can see that all of the numbers bigger than 0 are shaded, so we're going to do the greater than, and then we just plunk down the 0. So that is our inequality that matches that graph. On the flip side, in other problems, you might be given this and asked to graph it. And if that's the case, then that's what your graph would look like. All right, let's look at these 2. And if you're starting to feel confident, again, you can pause this at any time, write down the problem, and come back and hit play and see if you get it right. So our top number line, we have a closed-in circle. And so we know that that has narrowed it down to one of these. It's either going to be less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. And then, so again, start with the variable. This time I'll just use y just to be different. We know that we're going to have a -6 on the other side, and we need to fill in this here with either less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. So are all numbers bigger than -6 shaded, or are all numbers less than -6 shaded? Well, again, if you're not really sure, just pick a number. I'm just looking at 6. 6 is way bigger than -6. So we know that all of the numbers bigger than, and again, if you have your cheat sheet written down from the previous slide, we're going to use the greater than or equal to. So I just want to talk real quick about this closed circle. Helped us eliminate some of the possibilities, and it narrowed it down to these two. But what it means is that -6 is actually one of the solutions. Okay, -6 is a valid solution for this inequality. Whereas down here in this bottom one, because we have an open circle, we can't say that -1 is part of the solution set. It is not part of the solution set. All right, so let's dive into that problem. Again, we'll just pick x as our variable. The graph starts at -1, and now I need to decide what goes between them. Okay, because we have an open circle, I've already been able to narrow it down to these. It's either going to be less than or greater than, and we just look at what's shaded. It's all of the numbers bigger than -1 have been shaded, so all numbers greater than -1 have been shaded. So it's kind of just a process. Write down a variable, leave a little space, write down where the graph starts, and then narrow down your possibilities to 2, excuse me, and then choose which one based on where the shading is. All right, last problem. So again, I'm going to choose my variable of x. I'm going to leave a little bit of space. My graph starts at 6. And then if I want to narrow it down from my 4 different possibilities, I realize I have a closed circle here. So it's either going to be less than or equal to, or it's going to be greater than or equal to. So then I want to look at what's shaded. Are the numbers bigger than 6 shaded, or the numbers less than 6 shaded? So I'm just going to look at one. Oh, 0 is less than 6. So I already know that I have to be less than 6, less than or equal to. 6 is a part of the solution set, in case somebody wants to say, hey, is 6 a solution? Yes, it is, because it is filled in. Okay, I hope that this has helped you learn how to write an inequality once you're given the graph on a number line.